We can go live then.
Right, you're now live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 9th of the Clearview Accessibility Committee, Advisory Committee. Welcome to everyone. I think we may have a couple of people that are coming in late just because they had other commitments, but we'll get started and see where we go from here. Approval of agenda. Be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee hereby approve the agenda for dated November 9th as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Krista and Councillor Broderick. Disclosure of disqualifying interest or the nature thereof. Okay, seeing none. Approval of the minutes from the October 12th meeting. Krista?
Yep.
And
Ted.
Councillor Broderick?
No,
Are there any?
Actually, it was Ted. Ted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Any errors or omissions, or does anybody want to discuss anything that were in the minutes? We're all good? Okay. Approval of the minutes. Okay. Sorry. Are there any naysayers to the approval of the minutes? We've had a mover and a seconder.
No.
Okay. Those are passed. The business arising from the minutes, the Village Green update. Terry has sent his regrets at this point in time. He couldn't really provide us with the report and wasn't comfortable kind of giving us an update without being here to answer any questions. So we'll move that to the next meeting if necessary. Communications from the chair, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee. There was a letter that was sent to the County of Simcoe from the Innisfil Advisory Committee regarding the bins. And I know that the committee, that the county is revisiting the size of the bins and is going to offer something different for people. Does anybody have any comments about this? Do they feel that we should be commenting on it, or that we should just let it go, or where are we kind of at?
I live in a townhouse complex that doesn't have them, but I have seen lots of them, and I kind of really did take a closer look at them where the salon's located, and because my ex-husband has them, and I looked at the accessibility part of it, and I thought that they were relatively decent, except for the people that are in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then they can't. The green bin has to be unlocked and then opened up, right? So it's like.
Actually, I don't think it does.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be, in order for it to go out to the street, it doesn't need to be unlocked.
Okay.
I think there's something about
I can.
Yeah.
There's a gravity unlock, so when they flip upside down, they unlock on their own.
Okay.
So you don't have to unlock them to take them out to the road.
Okay.
And speaking from somebody in a wheelchair, how would you do it before? It's easier to move that cart than it was to move a garbage can that didn't have wheels on it.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I thought of that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. So Ted, did you have any comments about it? Your mute is on. Okay. No. Okay. So we'll just so everybody seems comfortable to just let it, we'll just accept it as information then. If I could have somebody just move that we accept it as information. Krista, and a seconder, Ted. Okay. Ted, any naysayers? Okay. Okay, we don't have any site plans or building plans for review, Kayla? And
no, you don't.
Okay, and the support persons policy. That was the new business.
Yeah.
Was that you, Amanda?
That is me. But I noticed that there was no link on the agenda. So I can go through the Word document. Did you already receive this document maybe at a previous?
No, we didn't receive it at all, Amanda, not that I know. So I wasn't able to attach to our agenda package.
Oh, okay, I apologize. There is one.
Okay, do you want to just share your screen then maybe? And
I
you
can,
just
yeah.
do that?
Do I have the ability to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're also, there we go. You can see the support person policy. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, so thank you for letting me present today. This policy is being presented mainly to catch up with what we are already doing administratively, but it really came to light because of our COVID requirements for pre-registration of all individuals accessing the Stainer Centennial Pool in the Youth Center. So after discussing it with Terry and our Youth Center coordinator and myself, we felt that having a concrete policy would just provide like that standardization across all recreation facilities and programs. And just to reiterate, you know, if there's ever staff turnover or when working with volunteer organizations, that we have a support person policy in place. And the intent of the support person policy, it's designed for people who have a permanent disability and require assistance of a support person to access our recreation programs and facilities, including the Creemore Arena, Stainer Arena, the Clearview Youth Center, the Centennial Pool, as a method to, and as you can see in my note, it's as a method to improve social inclusion, to provide access to cultural and recreational opportunities and experiences, including the town operated events and farmers markets as well that would happen at these locations, without any added financial barrier. So in essence, the participant would still pay their registration fee or their access fee. However, the support person or the care provider would be eligible to enter at no cost. Most importantly, though, we still need to, and because of COVID, and I don't see this changing anytime soon, there will always be the requirement that that support person also registers so that we have documentation that there are always, you know, a person helping or providing assistance to the actual participant who is taking part in either the rec program or at the facility. Tammy and I had gone back and forth. We do believe that having this policy, it would continue to follow the same plan as our accessible standards for customer service. So that's a policy document that we already have. So this particular support person policy just enhances what we already do in practice. It would apply to the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department. It would require our staff or contractors or volunteers acting on behalf of our department to follow it. The exemption, however, is that we normally don't put these policies in effect in the community centers, so the small halls, the log cabin, or North America's smallest jail. However, I would share this document with the hall boards through our committee coordinator so that they are encouraged to adopt this policy or to create a similar standard or similar policy. We also wouldn't require a third-party event. So if there was a not-for-profit organization or an event organizer that was renting our facility, that they have their own rental contracts, and this type of policy would not apply. I went through quite a lengthy part of the policy about definitions, the objectives, which is ultimately creating an environment that is welcoming and doesn't discriminate against anyone, while also continuing to ensure confidentiality amongst the person who requires the support person to be available. And that again goes back to the fact that now that we've been transitioning to using RecDesk, the online portal, when we print out an attendance sheet, the names are all just listed equally. So we're not necessarily centering somebody out, which is kind of unfortunately has happened in the past, right? A person shows up and then all of a sudden there's an extra person in the class, and it puts our summer staff or our Clearview Youth Center staff into the position to be like, oh, sorry, who are you? You're not on the list. So we don't want to create that to center anybody out. So that's the point of access to programming, is that both individuals will be required to register. The support person, again, just to reiterate, they receive the complimentary admission for the registration, but then the participant pays the applicable fees. I also just would like to emphasize that when possible, we'd like to have this in advance. So we know that there might be some activities that are much more popular. So we would really encourage people, when you hear that registrations are coming out, to sign up earlier so that we can accommodate those extra guests that are there to support the individual that is attending the program who may have a permanent disability. So in essence, we are doing this. If you show up at the Stainer Centennial Pool and you're an individual with a disability and you have a support worker or a care worker or care provider, we are already letting that individual attend. Likewise here for public skating at the Stainer Arena, we're already allowing that individual to attend, but just by having a policy, it just creates that consistency across our entire department. So I wanted to bring this information to the committee to get some of your feedback on the policy, and I do plan to have this presented to council to be formally adopted. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry that you didn't receive a copy of it in advance of today. You could also, I'm not sure if it would be appropriate, I could also just send it out by email, and you could submit questions or concerns if necessary, but I am here happy to answer any questions.
When do you intend on taking it to council, Amanda?
Well, there aren't that many council meetings left. So potentially in November or December. If not, this will be a 2023 project. But like I said, we're just kind of, it's a little bit of a housekeeping policy in the sense that we're already doing this in practice. So it won't prevent any current programming offerings that we have planned.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any comments?
What if, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I just wanted to know if Clearview will be also offering, if you have a permanent disability but you have no support to help you, will Clearview have some sort of list of people that might be volunteering or that are qualified to help support?
Yeah, so Krista, that's a great question. I know other communities may have those resources. We at this point don't. That would have to be direction from council if necessary, but at this point we don't. This is for existing clients who are already coming. The majority of the individuals we're well aware of, but obviously our community is growing.
Yes.
So maybe new families that are coming and new individuals that are coming to access our programs and services. But no, I don't keep a database. My best recommendation would be to refer them to 211 so that they would get the most up-to-date contacts for any service agency or community-based organization.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Andrew, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. How does one define whether, and maybe this is in the policy, I just can only see parts of it. How does one know if somebody is a person with a permanent disability or not?
Mm-hmm. So I did include a definition of a disability, and it's fairly, it's a definition that's been used in a few of our other documents and other policies, but plus is referenced kind of just as standard information. Unfortunately, it would be up to the individual presenting themselves at the counter to disclose if they have a permanent disability. But for the purposes of the policy, the definition does read any degree of physical infirmity, malformation, or disfigurement that is caused by body injury, birth defect, or illness, and without limited generality of the foregoing, including diabetes, epilepsy, a brain injury, any degree of paralysis, amputation, lack of physical coordination, blindness, visual impairment, deafness or hearing impediment, muteness or speech impediment, or physical reliance on a guide dog or other animal or any wheelchair or any remedial device or appliance. 2, a condition of mental impairment or developmental disability. 3, a learning disability or dysfunction in one or more of the processes involved in understanding or using symbols or spoken language. 4, a mental disorder. Or 5, any injury or disability for which benefits were claimed or received under an insurance plan established by WSIB in 1997. So it's a very comprehensive definition. And then the definition of a support person is the least comprehensive, in the sense that it is to assist people who have a disability with a variety of tasks depending on their capability and needs. So it doesn't have to be a registered individual. Some policies that we reviewed did require that. We feel that in our community and the type of resources and access to support, not only in Clearview, but in the county of Simcoe, it would be a limitation to require that as a registered individual. So our support person definition is quite limited, or is all encompassing.
Well, and a lot of times the support person can just be, it's a family member, right?
Exactly.
It's a family member that's helping them out, or whatever, that's properly trained in the needs of the person, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So my concern there becomes that, are we counting on some, like a summer student to, or somebody at, taking fees at the pool to know what's about this policy, and who can, who falls under support person, who doesn't, who has a disability, who doesn't?
Yeah, so Andrew, great question. And like I said, interestingly enough, we're already providing a level of training and oversight to our students and to any employee that works for Parks and Rec and Culture. But because we don't have a consistent policy, how I explain allowing access for a support person may be different than how another employee does. So by referencing a policy, I actually think that it will strengthen the opportunities available, and we will create a more welcoming environment and take the responsibility off of the frontline staff to determine, should they get in or not get in? The policy will help just kind of streamline that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd feel bad for the summer student that's getting yelled at or told by some random person that they have or do not have a disability.
Yeah, so I have now been in this position for just over 5 years and responsible for a lot of programming and events. And we haven't experienced any families or individuals taking advantage of free admission or treating our frontline staff poorly or harassing them in any way. I truly believe that individuals who will benefit from this have already been benefiting, and anyone new to our community will be treated as fairly and openly as anybody else. So I haven't experienced that. If anyone does experience that, we would just deal with those on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty common, like Easter Seals access to entertainment has much the same program that applies to like anything from cinemas to Ripley's Aquarium to the zoo, etc.
Yeah. And we've accepted things like the Autism Pass, which the Autism Society of Ontario has for a number of years. I don't know if actually it's still current because of COVID, but for a number of years, it was very much a similar program. And we were able to, we accepted that that pass holder for public swimming.
They
So,
still use
Okay.
it, just, you know.
I thought they did, yeah. Thanks,
Yeah, they
Krista.
did. Yeah,
But
my
Andrew,
sister-in-law is on the board.
you have a very good point, and I really can't emphasize this enough. Like, our frontline staff have been putting up with a lot of changes and protocols, and they deal with the customers and patrons so frequently. Like, we do ask a lot of them, but you know, this policy hopefully will just give them that hard document to refer back to if there was any challenges. So.
Okay. Is there a reason for the permanent disability in your text? Because when you talk about a disability, you don't talk about it being a permanent disability. I think it's kind of understood when it talks about disability, but if you go through your document, you're talking about permanent disability. And I'm not.
I concur,
Sure.
by the way.
Sorry?
I concur.
Yeah.
Like, does it have to say, yeah, does it have to say permanent?
I guess, so to be honest, we looked at a wide range of different policy documents. And, you know, when you're writing policy, you do try to pick and choose the things that fit well. Permanent disability was used. I have no reason not to keep it in. I guess, I mean, if the advisory committee wishes me to remove that, that's an easy fix for me to do.
I have a hypothetical question, Amanda, and that's I get into an automobile accident for 6 months. I'm half in a body cast. I'm disabled. I cannot do the things that I can do. I cannot function without a support worker. It is not permanent. I plan on getting physiotherapy and I plan on walking again, but at this point I can't. Does that mean that my support worker does not fall under this because it says permanent?
Under the current policy, that would be correct, yes. So if you were to show up with a broken arm or a broken wrist, and
that's how I'm saying, like, not being able to physically do things on my own. A broken arm or a broken wrist, I still have another arm. So what I'm saying is not permanent, but a physical disability where I do need to help for somebody to take me to the bathroom or see, these are the things that's why you came to a committee, honey.
And that's why I came. That's exactly why I came, and I'm open to your feedback. And like I said, I can make these changes. When we reviewed a number of different examples and looked at what support persons policies were in place, most of them did reference permanent. I guess the idea is that it is a permanent disability, and that the access or the benefit to participating would reduce, you know, any of the social isolation. It could improve mental health, improve their connection to the community as a whole. Whereas if it's just a temporary disability, like the body cast as your example,
6 or 8 months of my, but if it was 6 or 8 months of my life that I was disabled, and then I'm going to be locked in the house because my support worker can't get in. Right? Like, I just feel like that's still limiting the social aspects of a disability, whether it's permanent or temporary or not. If I still have a limb and I can still do things with a limb, that's one thing. But I mean, if I still need help for X amount of months or weeks or whatever it takes, I still feel like it's a disability. And in order to be included socially in the community, my support worker should still fall under a support worker category.
So again, this document has not been passed yet. So if there is direction from the advisory committee to make any changes, if there's other committee members that feel the same way, I can, change and make that revision to the document.
Cool.
Okay.
Amanda, is there a date that you might want comments, questions, or concerns submitted to you by, perhaps?
Well, that was the purpose of today's meeting, was to receive feedback so that I can move forward with the next step in getting the policy approved by senior management and then on to council.
Okay, well, Krista, do you want to, if you bring forward the request and then we can vote on it, I guess is kind of I guess that's probably the easiest
best
way, because
way.
I think there are a couple of people that are maybe feeling the same way.
Yeah. I
So
just
if you
feel like
want-
I feel like the word permanent disability shouldn't be in there. And I feel like the word disability should just be in there. So if you cannot function on your own with, you know, your day-to-day chores and activities and hygiene, et cetera, you should not be limited to not going to a social event with your personal support worker. And then your personal support worker has to pay to get in because it's not permanent. Like, I mean, me getting into an accident, being hit by a drunk driver, not even my fault. Here I sit. These are actual real life scenarios that happen every single day within our communities. And that's what I bring forward to the council today. And I hope that my council members can consider it and approve it, because I feel it's
Okay.
important.
Krista,
Okay,
Yes.
I just see reference to the word disability. And I guess somewhere earlier on in this, there's a definition that disability means permanent.
Oh,
No.
yeah.
No, it's just that in the policy, there's a reference to permanent disability, but then when you,
If this talks of
but the
disability,
definition only deals with disability. It doesn't say permanent disability, it just says disability. But there are a number of places where it says permanent disability.
but in this policy, is that defined, or is that, maybe it's not an issue here, Krista?
No, it does state it, Chad. It states permanent in a couple different places.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. And that's why
I
Deborah-
saw
and that's-
reference a lot to just disability, and you say wherever you see disability, you have to read that as permanent.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, what we're seeing, Ted, is that there's a number of places where it says permanent disability,
Yeah,
but then farther along, when it talks about disability as a definition, there is no reference to the permanency of the disability. And so we were asking,
okay.
I think Krista
Maybe
feels
just
that permanent should be removed from
Yeah,
any reference that it has there.
yeah, so maybe it's just an issue of correcting the vocabulary and being specific as to it's permanent, and then in which case Krista has a problem, or that if it just refers to disability, there's no suggestion that it is.
Exactly, Ted. That's what I'm saying.
We
Just
have a
remove the
proposed
word.
Read that way.
Yeah, so I think what Krista's motion is that the reference of permanent disability just be revised to disability. Like
Thank you, Deb.
that's what we're recommending, I think.
Would you like me to
Just to
read a?
remove permanent altogether. from
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So Krista's making that motion. Can somebody second it?
that. I
I'll
would
second it.
that. Yeah,
Thank you.
Deb.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, council. Thank you, members. I appreciate that.
Okay, and is there any naysayers?
Would you like to hear the resolution?
Yes,
Yes,
I would like to hear the resolution.
So the proposed resolution moved by Krista and possibly seconded by Deb is, be it resolved that the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee hereby recommend permanent disability, in quotes, be removed from the proposed policy and replaced with disability.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
okay. Is there any other comments?
Can you just scroll, Amanda, can you scroll down to the definition of disability and how you're defining it in this scope or in this policy? Yep. I think you went by it.
Right there.
Some people's internet's faster than others.
disability.
Yeah, so this is out of the access to,
The AODA standard.
yeah. So there's no discussion about permanency of the disability.
There's no, yeah, exactly. So as long as you remove permanent elsewhere, then you're defining it as, if somebody, as you say, Krista, if somebody was injured, then that constitutes the first thing, which is body injury. So
Exactly. That's all I'm asking is
Yeah.
just for that
Yeah.
word to be removed and it just be a little bit more broader than the word permanent
All
and the
right.
definition of permanent.
Yeah. Okay, and oh, the other question, Amanda, that I had, did anybody else have any other questions?
I just had a comment. I can give you a real world example of it. About 7 years ago, I got ran over by a Hummer and spent 3 weeks or 3 months, sorry.
Almost.
Disabled, really. I couldn't walk. I couldn't. Yeah. So that would have precluded me from that. Now, in reality, for that 3 months, I was too sore to go anywhere anyways, but I could see if it had been a little longer, if it was 6 months or more, regardless, I would have figured out a way to get out and do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, yeah, I think we all, there are bad places bad things to happen to good people, and they still want to participate in the community. And I don't think we should, we should be assessing whether it's permanent, whether it's forever or not. I guess that's kind of where I'm at.
If this is the reason why I'm saying this is, if this is going to be a standard, this is going to be a policy and procedure that we're teaching youth that have to present and accept and define and figure out on their own. I mean, it's youth, it's young adults. If the word permanent is removed, they will not think of the word permanency. They will just see it as disability and defiance of disability. It's just that, the youth of today are pretty black and white. They're pretty literal. And I just, I'd hate to see any altercation, which yes, we have none yet, but there could be, and just remove the word permanent. And that just saves all kinds of problems that could possibly happen.
Yeah. I think, yeah, there's a certain amount of ease that it makes, is that there's nobody to make a decision whether the person presenting themselves, whether what's going on is permanent or whatever. It really doesn't matter. Yeah.
Thank you, Deb.
No. Okay. The other question that I had was about the halls and all of that. They're still covered under the AODA. And so then I wonder, I wonder why this is excluded from the policy.
Why is it going to be a request and not a standard?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So that's a great point. And to be 100% clear, when the individual attends a program or facility, there is an impact to taxation. So the taxpayers will fund their participation. When they attend an event or have to purchase a ticket or go to a program at one of the halls, that comes out of the small halls, their own budget. So it is entirely up to them if they choose to redirect their funds. Once again, there are some situations where they are allowing the support person to access for free. And then there are others where those ticket sales are their means of generating revenue. They don't have the same access to revenue sources like what the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department has access to. So what we've done in the past is any policies, the council can so choose to direct the hall boards to implement policy-wide requirements. Obviously, there are some COVID policies that are in effect here in our own department, township-wide, and affect our volunteer hall boards. However, our department does not feel that we need to take the lead and enforce this type of policy on those standalone boards and committees of council. Again, that can be a direction at the council table level if they so choose to enforce this. But our recommendation is that the community halls, the log cabin in North America's smallest jail, are to adopt a similar practice. However, it's not our place to impose these policies upon them.
Okay. How does everybody feel about that?
I think it should be straight across the board. But if it's a funding issue, then.
Well, Deb?
If the township's not giving them funding to be able to accommodate this, then the township shouldn't be telling them they have to do it.
I guess where I'm sitting is their boards of committee and committees of council. That's where I'm at, is their boards and committees of council, and we as a municipality should be striving for inclusion. Let's put it that way. That's kind of where I'm at.
And like equalism, like it's the same here, it's the same there, it's the same there. There's nobody that needs to rebuttal. There's nobody that needs to come up and say, oh, well, I argue this or I challenge you there. It's the same everywhere. No argument. This is it. That's what I'm kind of taking from this as well, but I'd have to think a little bit more about it, I think.
Councillor Broder, do you have any comments?
Well, the first thing is I was trying to envision what kind of monetary restraint that would be. And secondly, I was thinking we could, as a committee, make a request to council to follow that policy. I think that would be simple enough.
Like that's.
We not delegate funds. Can there's not be funds that's delegated for that when it comes to the fiscal year?
Well, and the other thing too, I wonder about us making a recommendation to council that they monitor the situation in those other areas, like that we adopt the policy municipally wide. And if there's an issue with the ones that you wanted to exempt, that council review the policy. Because I think that drawing a line between one municipal activity and another municipal activity doesn't, it's like saying, well, we're going to do it in Stainer, but at the Stainer arena, but we're not going to do it at the Creemore arena, and that's not what we're about. And I think that, the hall boards are working towards accessibility. And I think that it's important that we're embracing it. And, but I don't expect that to come from staff members, right? Necessarily when they're developing the policy. I think that we probably should make a recommendation for council, and council should debate it.
I have a proposed recommendation.
What do you have, Kayla?
Be it resolved that the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee hereby recommend council consider extending the policy across all hall boards, inclusive of the log cabin and jail.
Does somebody want to move that?
Oh, I think it sounds good.
Okay. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Broderick? Okay.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, and I don't know if we want to add to it that they monitor the situation to see whether there's a financial issue with the halls or with those community groups. Because I don't necessarily think that an admission is going to make or break when they're having a fundraising event. Okay, because there's usually other things, right? Like you're talking about an admission, like to a fundraiser or something like that. Well, they still have to pay for a meal, and they still have to, buy their drinks or whatever, kind of all of that stuff. All of what it isn't is the admission part of it. Right, so it would be a concert or that sort of thing, correct?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Amanda.
Okay. So, Deb, let me add a little bit of context. So right now in practice, an individual with a disability comes to the Stainer pool and they participate in public swimming. If they're an adult and their support person doesn't pay an admission fee, that's $4.
Mm-hmm.
If you come to adult skate, that's $2.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
purchasing a ticket to a concert at a community hall could be as high as $125. It could be as low as 15, 10. Maybe it's the pancake breakfast for $7.50. But we're talking a greater range of programs and activities and events that our department, as the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department, does not get into the operations of the hall board. They set their own fees for rentals. They have the authority to set their own policies. During COVID, they have had the ability to set their own parameters around what events are allowed to be, what rentals they will allow, which rentals they won't, when will they open, who's in charge, who's the responsible person. There's a lot of authority that is put back onto the halls. Certainly, if this is a recommendation that goes to council, I believe my next steps I would present the policy as you see already, and then include the recommendations from the committee, and that would be under the advisement of council to adopt those recommendations to be included. But I do strongly believe that will require an individual from the Accessibility Advisory Committee to present this policy to each of the hall boards so that you hear the feedback as to the implications. And this is the right thing to do. That's why we're coming to the table with a policy. We're already doing what we think is the right thing in our department. We're just not in a position as staff to impose a policy beyond our scope of what our department can do.
No, and I recognize what you're saying, Amanda.
And we would strive to not have the community center in Stainer and the arena in Creemore to be different. However, they have different rates, they have different fees, we run different program times. So in essence, each facility is a little bit different. So we're trying to capture what we're already doing in practice by putting it into a policy that is specific to the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department.
Okay.
But you still have a motion on the table, but I can try to add some more clarity or information around this particular item.
Yeah, and maybe it just needs to be revisited in a bigger context. I'm struggling with the idea that each hall is going to have, may have a different policy. Because, then people are coming to, the borders of Clearview, and depending on which hall they're going to, they're going to have to navigate through a different policy. And I think that in an effort for sameness, and embracing accessibility as much as we can in all of our facilities, I had a problem with that exemption. I guess that's where I was going.
In the same token, if you go, the accessibility of one hall is not the same as the other either. So if that's that's where you're going.
Quite true, Andrew.
Yeah.
Because if I go to the Brentwood Hall, I know I can't get in that building without help or crawling up the stairs.
Good point, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evening hall. Nope, not happening.
And perhaps the committee, you have the motion on the table, and by all ways, as staff, will bring that forward. But, there currently is a huge review and undertaking of improving accessibility and exceeding the minimum standards of AODA. So that might be something that we want to revisit when a decision is made as to what halls are remaining open, which ones will be will undergo improvements in the next few years. And these types of customer service policies can be addressed as we make those changes.
Yeah.
But I do see where you're coming from, Deb. I just need to reiterate that this is a staff, our staff report is for the department that Terry, obviously Terry is our general manager that we work within, and we are not in a position to impose policy on other boards and committees unless there's direction.
Okay, and so maybe, okay, go ahead, Andrew.
I don't know how to go about this, but is there a way that the policy may not be the same as this policy, but the small halls, the log cabin in the North America as small as jail, all have a policy that is shared amongst them? So it may not be the same as this policy, but it would be the same amongst all of those entities. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most similar alignment to that, Andrew, would be either how the rates and fees are established by the boards and committees. Though that is an overarching policy and recommendation from our finance department, but individual halls determine the rates of each of their specific parts. So, whether it's a kitchen rental or an event with alcohol or a small event, that's all up to them. Another potential similar example would be how alcohol is, events with alcohol are done at each of the halls. Some halls take that responsibility on themselves and they are the contracted service provider for alcohol. Others require the rental to go through a standard SOP process. So already we have a system in place that allows flexibility from the halls. The committee coordinator, Kayla, would probably be able to even give way more examples. But this is, again, this would only be if you have a motion on the table to recommend it to council, and if council was to so choose, we would reach out to our boards.
Kayla, you had a comment?
Yeah, just to build on what Amanda is saying, when you start looking at hall events, some of the events, yes, are run by the hall boards themselves, in which case, sure, the policy may cover it if council so chose to continue with your recommendation here. However, there are a lot of events that are open to the public, but run by outside groups. Christmas markets come to mind. Different concerts at the evening hall come to mind, and there's no for sure or guarantee that this policy could extend over into a private run public event.
Yeah.
That's correct, Kayla. That's how the policy is written, even in effect for the Stainer Arena and Community Center and the Claymore Arena and Community Center. Third party events and rentals would also be exempt from this policy. We have no authority. I might have the ability to write the policy, but I have no authority to enforce.
Okay. Okay, that being said, and I kind of understand where you're coming from a little bit more, Amanda. That being said, is there any change that we want to make to the motion, or do we want to just vote on it and decide whether we want it to go to council or not?
Can we reread that, please?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I included your friendly amendment, Deb, and the new resolution, if the seconder and mover so choose. Be it resolved that the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee hereby recommend council consider extending the policy across all hall boards, inclusive of log cabin and jail, limited to admission fees.
maybe just add at their own events as well, like to move it away from the third party, just so it's clear that it's not the third party events. If you guys, if the mover and seconder are okay with that. And it's for council to discuss too.
In light of what Amanda's just imparted to us, I'm wondering if we're putting the cart before the horse. I'm wondering if we should defer a decision on this until a decision's been made on the small holes and regarding access, and perhaps until after that's been dealt with.
Okay.
I do like the idea, Amanda's idea of forwarding the policy to the small holes, and I do believe most of them would implement it where it was practical and where they could, because nobody wants to see somebody left out.
Mm-hmm. I guess, yeah, and I guess where I'm kind of going with it is just all the differences, but that's fine.
Yeah, I get that. I want us to get there too.
Yeah.
I just, at this point, I guess what I'm saying is we're not there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
The whole point of our committee is to get there though, correct?
It
Mhm.
is. It
Yeah, okay.
is.
I'm just making sure.
okay, at this point in time, maybe we can leave this for a bigger, can we leave it for a discussion later on?
Certainly
Yeah,
can.
if you guys want to, maybe if Krista wants to withdraw the motion, we can revisit it after you have a better understanding of where the halls are and how this process moves through council
Yeah.
in terms of the
Because
policy.
I kind of wonder, Amanda, how many events, I know we're in kind of the wrong climate, right? But how many events would the halls themselves actually have?
Deb, that's a great question. You know, I don't really have those numbers at my fingertips. And the last 2 years would not be a very good representation of those numbers. You'll be surprised that this will impact quite a lot of their day-to-day operations at the halls. But to Kayla's point, there's also events that happen at these halls that people think the hall board puts on, but it's actually a third party. And likewise, even as the township, you know, lots of our own residents don't realize that there are lots of events that we are not the primary organizer of. So, you know, so the answer is I don't have that number for you. Okay. There would need to be some work done with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to find out, and our hall boards to find out what kind of impact this is. And Krista, I really appreciate your comments. We're striving to get there. That's why baby steps, this policy brings our department into alignment, you know? So, so I mean, I'm with you.
When it comes to the motion, my motion was definitely just to remove the word disability. And I think Deb just made a follow-up point where, you know, exempt the word exemption. That was kind of Deb's motion, not mine. So,
so, I mean, I can remove exemptions entirely from this policy because it is fairly clear in the purpose and introduction that this applies to recreation facilities, Creemore, Stainer Arena, Clearview, Centennial Pool. Those are the ones that our department has sole
regulation.
Yes.
Yeah, regulation's over.
Yeah.
Because those are the municipally ran organizations and centers. So yeah, with definite respect. Yeah, for me, I feel like Deb had a very good point, and yeah, you can't make third parties do what they don't want to do. And I feel like just empathy, they're going to have empathetic morals and values when they rent a hall. If they know a family member has a disability that can't use it, then maybe they'll just choose another hall.
Yeah. And this again is to remove any of the financial burden. We also know that there are a number of families in our community that participate and they pay the entrance fees and they just continue to participate.
Yeah. But not every family has that financial stability. So
that's what I mean. That's
yeah.
The primary goal of this is to remove that financial burden to ensure there's a welcoming program and recreation facility opportunity. I'm just saying that there are also quite a lot of families that we aren't even aware of that just continue to attend our programs and pay the admission fees.
I don't think, Amanda, that the whole paragraph of the exemption paragraph needs to be removed personally. And again, my committee could attest to that. I'm still new on the committee. It's only been a couple of years. I'm new to this, but at the end of the day, I feel like it can be like an inclusion of, or just maybe the word exemption changed, because maybe it should still be stated in hopes that a third party would be respectful and responsible, knowing that if somebody attending their event or could be attending their event, if it's a public ran event by a third party, that people will have disabilities, and choose your event place, accordingly.
So just removing the word exemption would just create that last paragraph to read, this policy is not enforced, because that is one of the
no, change the word exemption, I guess.
Yeah.
If that, Deb, do you agree with that? Because I mean, it was your point.
But
go ahead, Amanda.
It still does encourage the halls to adopt similar practices. And likewise, there are some pretty, well-attuned event planners in the county of Simcoe that are probably already doing this, whether they rent our facility or not, I'm not aware of, but I do know through the Festivals and Events Ontario sector that there are third-party event planners that are doing this type. They provide support access. There are major attractions across Canada that allow this type of policy. So we know that it's happening. So maybe it's just, if the word exemption is causing a challenge, and then I can remove that from the policy, keep the paragraph as it is, because it is encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And then to Councillor Broderick's point, we revisit this at a time when our small halls AODA plan is, further along in terms of actually having buildings that are fully accessible and exceed the minimum standards, so that we kind of bring everything full circle.
I agree.
Amanda, could you just go to the top of your policy for a sec? Okay, and then that exemption, does that exemption fall just at the end of that then?
It does. So it's under the scope, typically like an exemption. So the scope is, this policy applies to employees, volunteers, contracted staff. So those are any individuals that work on behalf of the Parks, Rec and Culture Department. The support person receives complimentary admission or program registration, but the participant still pays the applicable fees. If there are fees to an event held by township, staff shall not charge the support person. Staff may request notification in advance of the requirement if seating is limited. Again, we already have that in place. So.
I'm just wondering, as opposed to highlighting it as an exemption, could you put, because you talk about volunteers in the first paragraph, would you be able to put it maybe in that it doesn't apply, as opposed to just like putting exemption and then put this policy is not enforced at the community halls? Just what's not highlighted, I guess that's kind of.
The highlighted yellow was my speaking notes.
No, I get that.
That's a good clarity. That's a good clarity.
I know that it's not highlighted, but just because it says exemption.
Yeah.
it could flow in as. this-
Amanda, that looks better. Sorry for interrupting.
There's also third party
Sorry.
events are exempt, and that should be removed too.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry, Krista, that was confusing. I thought you had this document ahead of time, so I highlight my speaking notes.
no, that's okay.
Amanda,
So
the
I-
third party events and rentals are exempt. Just to remove that, it also includes third party. If you want to remove exemption as the word,
yeah, you've got exempt there as well.
third party events this also includes third party events.
However, they're encouraged.
We're
to
also
follow-
encouraged to
Yeah.
follow similar practices.
Yeah.
Get me?
So you remove the word also and exempt and semicolon.
Mm-hmm.
So third-party events and rentals
Yes.
are encouraged to follow similar practices.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so I also think I can remove the word exempt from there, and maybe enforced is changed to administered. So that we
Yeah.
remove the element of enforcement, but this policy wouldn't be administered at those community halls by the Parks, Rec and Culture Department, because that's not my position. However, they would be encouraged to adopt a similar policy.
Amanda, Amanda, look at your last sentence. That's what Ted's referring to as well.
Okay, so third-party events and rentals are also exempt. So the exemption in that sense is, once again, if a rental comes into our Stainer
yeah.
Community Hall or Creemore Hall, or they rent the Stainer pool for a private a rental,
Yeah,
this policy would not be extended to that.
yes, we understand.
don't want to
I think we
exempt them,
understand
just-
that. I think what we want though is the third-party events and rentals are encouraged to follow a similar practices. It's just you have also exempt.
If
And
you take,
however,
if you take out the word exempt there,
Exemption.
it's unfortunately going to complicate things.
It's really, thank you, Councillor Broderick. Yeah, the word exempt in this case means that we don't have to require them to follow this policy.
But also to what? They're also like who else? Or are they just exempt?
I think what it is, it's third-party event and rentals are exempt from this policy, but encouraged to follow similar practices, because you say are also exempt. Who is also exempt?
Oh, okay. So what about if it reads, this policy is not enforced, or sorry, this policy is not administered at community halls, log cabins, jail. However, boards and committees of council are encouraged to adopt similar practices, and also third-party events are encouraged to follow similar practices.
Good.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, got it. Thank you
Okay.
for smithing all of that.
So based on this, we'll withdraw the motion that was made and just, yeah, and this is just wordsmithing, right?
Once again, thank you for letting me bring this policy forward, because that's the intent of making the presentation. I'd much rather make these changes in this forum than bring it forward to council and, have to backtrack on this.
No, I
we're
appreciate,
still gonna, sorry, Deb, we're still gonna remove the word permanent though, right? Like, I mean, that was my
Yes.
original.
yeah.
Okay. Okay,
That was the other, the other policy was.
that was the other motion that I don't
Yeah.
want to remove the motion completely
No,
until
no.
I know that that's done. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, that one was already passed.
Completely
It was just
different,
this
yeah.
part about the exemption. Okay, thanks for bringing it, Amanda. I'm sorry that we didn't get it earlier. We probably would have, it's hard to do it on the fly when we're seeing it for the first time, but thank you for taking what we had to say and working with us. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a sec here. I've got to move everybody's face for a minute so I can see the rest of the agenda.
And let me stop sharing. So just so I'm
Okay.
clear, there was only the one, or Kayla, maybe you have to do this. Do you give me the recommendations? So when I do the council report, I include those, or do I just,
Yes.
or
I'll give you the one recommendation. As far as the wordsmithing with the exempt, I can see that it's already gone. So if you don't mind sending that out, I can attach it to the minutes, and I don't need to worry about all the rest of the exempt and moving a portion and what have you. So I can send you the resolution that was carried, and it's my understanding, committee, that we've withdrawn
The other-
extending it.
Right.
Excellent.
Do you want a blanket recommendation that we accept the report with the changes then? Amanda?
well, I think so. So I can remove the word permanent, if that's the advice that the
I think
advisor-
that's, yeah, like that was just the kind of the sticking point, but then we did a little, then there was a little bit of wordsmithing that went on.
I feel like if we're going to wordsmith, let's just wordsmith the word permanent, and then wordsmithing is done, and there's no motions and carried and all that other stuff, and then we just say, yeah, okay, looks good.
Well, I think the part permanent probably plays a bigger role in it. I don't know. What do you
Okay.
think? Yeah.
Yes,
You
I
have more
a
experience,
proposed
Deb.
resolution for you.
Yeah.
Be it resolved that the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee hereby approve the proposed support persons policy as amended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I have a mover, please?
Yeah, me.
Okay. And Deb
Yeah.
can second it.
Okay.
Okay. Any naysayers? Okay.
I know
Motion carried.
where y'all live. Don't nay at all. I know where y'all live.
Okay. Okay, so our next meeting is for December 14th. Oh, thanks, Amanda.
You're
Amanda,
welcome.
thank you very much. It was nice to meet you on Zoom, but thank you.
Oh, yes. Thank
Okay.
you. You guys have
Thanks
a
for-
wonderful,
Kayla, I didn't get to see your face, Kayla. I'm just saying.
you
Okay,
guys have a wonderful evening.
you too. We'll talk to you again. Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for December 14th at 3:30. And can I have a motion to adjourn, I guess? Ted?
Yeah.
And, okay, and Krista?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and be it resolved, the advisory committee is adjourned at 4:37. Can I have a mover? Please, Councillor Broderick and Deb. Okay, thanks, everyone. We shall
Thank
see
you.
you on the 14th.